A team of Trump's attorneys are now saying that the SCOTUS immunity opinion voids his entire hush money case, not just his conviction. The argument was made in a 55-page legal filing on Thursday. This is reporting from Business Insider. It says no president of the United States has ever been treated as unfairly and unlawfully as District Attorney Bragg has acted towards President Trump, the filing laments, referring to the Manhattan DA. Not only jurors, but grand jurors were shown official acts evidence in violation of the presidential immunity doctrine set just last week by the US Supreme Court, the 55-page filing argues. So prosecutors are expected to respond by arguing that with or without the official act evidence, Trump would have been found guilty either way. It goes on, but the use of official acts evidence resulted in the type of deeply prejudicial error that strikes at the core of the government's function and cannot be addressed through harmless error analysis, Trump's filing says. Presidential immunity errors are never harmless, the filing argues. A portion of the legal filing released by Trump's attorneys on Thursday was redacted, presumably to obscure what exactly the official acts evidence used by the prosecution was. But just hours after SCOTUS published their official acts opinion, Trump's attorneys hinted at the official acts evidence that they are going to target. The defense argued that this now forbidden evidence included phone logs from Trump's first 2 years in office, incriminating 2018 tweets from his personal Twitter account, a government ethics form he signed in 2018, and testimony by former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, and a 2018 conversation she had with Trump in the Oval Office. Prosecutors have until July 24th to respond to Trump's filing. Jordan, we've never seen anything like this in American history. Do you think Trump's got a case here?
I don't know. I mean, the uncertainty that the Supreme Court left us with in that decision creates an opportunity, at least, for him to just completely wipe his hands of all of it. And that's unfortunate. They acknowledge in that decision they aren't laying out explicitly what is an unofficial act. And I would imagine this will just get appealed back up to the Supreme Court, where probably they'll say, yeah, you can do whatever you want. It's just a completely broken system. And the effect was the sentencing should have been yesterday in the felony case. And now it's going to be prolonged probably until, I think it's safe to assume, after the election. So he's not going to face any real consequences until it's potentially too late. He's back in power. And maybe that even adds more pressure on the Supreme Court to just side with him. It's disheartening. Like what is this country becoming, where a guy who just completely, obviously, transparently committed a litany of crimes in a powerful position faces no scrutiny or pushback or punishment? Just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a moral and ethical bankruptcy. And the reality is that the Supreme Court does leave the door open to maybe actually classifying much of what was involved in the hush money, which is really election interference, as you guys know. It's called the hush money case, but it was to obscure information that would have helped the voter make a determination. That was so. In any case, in a way, they leave the door open, but it's cloudy, as you just said. We just don't know, what's an official act, what's not. Now, I will say this about the hush money and the way it went down in terms of the timeline. It preceded him actually in the Oval Office. So if you only accept, that is the EXCEPT, if you only have an exception for those things that are official acts, you got to be president to have an official act, right? When you're still a candidate, Trump, and that's when a lot of this stuff happened, it is sort of a different deal. So the door is open, but again, as Jordan just noted, and I think it's really an interesting fact that they put off sentencing in this case. I don't understand the legal deference that they've paid, but clearly they're anticipating that the Supreme Court is going to ride to his rescue on this, or at least the appellate court.
Yeah, I'm just annoyed that we're still talking about this, honestly. Like, this should be done. Like, we did all of it. Like, what was it all for? Why did we do any of this? Why were any of us spending time and money and energy trying any of this, right? And
well, just not to interrupt, yes, but but now that I've interrupted us, I do want to make the point that I think the compelling case that has stink all over it is that document case. And the real tragedy of this entire thing, you made me think of it when you talk about the delay, is that Eileen Cannon has so put herself in the tank for Trump that she is delaying this in, well, clearly that's going to be delayed to the point that it may just evaporate if Trump becomes president. But it's so indefensible. Military secrets, thousands of documents in insecure locations, bathrooms, ballrooms, bedrooms. It's absurd, and they're everywhere. It's indefensible, and I felt as though reputationally, Trump would have paid a much greater price than he was paying for the hush money porn star case. And so that, I think, as long as we're talking about things that we lament, I lament the fact that that case has been parked and will likely never see the light of day.
Yeah, I think that's what's so frustrating about so much of this, is that there is so much of this, right? There's so much stuff that's going on all at once, right? And our brains can't really fathom all of it. And not just that, but it's a lot of work for prosecutors to go through all the evidence and present the evidence. It takes a lot of people to sit on juries and to listen to all the evidence and to, hear the cases and make a decision based on it. There's so much stuff that goes into these processes. And then for the Supreme Court to just wipe it all away and say it never mattered, it doesn't matter, it's not going to matter. And on top of that, it's like Trump just has a strategy of doing so much all at once that it overwhelms people to the point where, kind of like the IRS case that we were talking about earlier, they just think that, they're not going to have the bandwidth to follow up on all of this stuff. And so whenever Trump says things that sound crazy, whenever he does things that are crazy or are illegal, right? He just assumes like there's so much that there's no way they can possibly get me for all of it. So
thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.